Welcome to Wellness in Every Season. We talk all things wellness to help you align yourself, align with your goals, find balance in your life, and just recalibrate yourself. If you are listening for the first time, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And let's get started in the rest of the podcast. Hello, everybody. Our guest today is Dr. David Blanchard, a program manager in the National Health Mission area at Johns Hopkins University in the Applied Physics Lab. He earned his PhD in medical chemistry at Oregon State University while working at the Center for Infectious Disease. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Blanchard. You are going to be talking to us today about intellectual health. Why do you think it is important?
Oh, let me give you my definition of what intellectual health is to begin. I think for me, intellectual health really is the desire to remain curious about the world around us. I think there are a lot of ways to practice intellectual wellness, and these can be through the development of new personal hobbies or artistic pursuits or community involvement, or even more formal educational endeavors. But to me, the important thing is to stay curious about what interests us and then to find ways to learn more about those interests.
I've definitely seen you do that over the years.
Thank you.
For those who don't know, he is working on his second master's currently.
I like to think of myself as a lifelong learner. So back to your original question, why do I think intellectual health is so important? Actually, I think you really captured it well in your previous episode. Improvement in one dimension of health typically leads to improvements in other dimensions of health. And of course, the flip side of that coin is also true. When a dimension of health is neglected or marginalized, it can have a detrimental effect on the other dimensions of health. So of the 8 that you listed, physical, social, occupational, environmental, spiritual, intellectual, emotional, and financial, intellectual health seems neglected by people as we get busy, whether it's a result of stress at work or the demands of a family or financial limitations. People find less time to read, or they stop practicing the things that they do in their hobbies. And then it's just really downhill from there. Maintaining intellectual health, I think, is really important because of the interplay with all of those other aspects.
How has your intellectual health positively affected your perspective, career, and life choices?
For me, intellectual health should come naturally. Intellectual and physical wellness should be the most fun. These are the things we do when we have free time. When I was a kid, I was outside all summer learning about my world. I learned how to ride a bike, fish, skip rocks, and play baseball, both physical and intellectual activities. Winter, my brother and I played with Legos, Tinker Toys, and erector sets, purely intellectual activities. Some people hear intellectual wellness and think homework, but to me, it's really about being curious and doing the things that are fun. Play and intellectual health go hand in hand to me. How this has influenced my career, I've been curious about a lot of different things over the course of my career, and it's benefited me greatly. I've had the opportunity to work on projects that were chemistry-based and other projects that were biology-based, physics-based, engineering. It's been incredibly rewarding. I've met some truly brilliant people over the years who've changed the way that I see the world. There's a really great quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson that says, "The mind once stretched by a new idea never returns to its original dimensions." That's been my experience. It's made my life and work meaningful.
I really like that. How do you think it ties into the other areas of wellness?
That's a great question. All the dimensions of wellness are interrelated. Intellectual wellness can have the greatest effect on social, occupational, and financial wellness. In social settings, I'm drawn to people who have interesting things to say and who've taken time to become well-read. So if you want to be more interesting in social situations, you need to put some time into your intellectual health. Intellectual wellness has paid tremendous dividends in my career, and I think that's true for most people who actively work on intellectual wellness. I think another direct result of that can be financial success. And so while intellectual wellness can influence all the dimensions of health, I think that it has the greatest influence on social, occupational, and financial health.
What do you think the signs are that you are neglecting your intellectual health?
I think for me, I first start to see the signs when I stop having interesting things to say to my family and friends. If I hear colleagues or friends talking about something new and I don't know what they're talking about, that's an indication I'm neglecting my intellectual well-being. A couple of months ago, I heard coworkers talking about ChatGPT, and it's this cool new artificial intelligence that can do your homework for you. And they were talking about all these amazing things it could do. And I felt left out because I hadn't heard about it. So I immediately went online and tried to get smart on it so that I could participate in these discussions. And so that's a good indication for me, is that I'm behind like friends and coworkers and family when they're talking about interesting things. And I think the cool thing about today is that it's really easy to stay informed. There are books on audio, there's instructional YouTube videos, there are podcasts. There are just so many ways to learn new things and stay up to date on current events. It just really is a matter of making it a priority. No, cat videos don't count.
I was just gonna say, you can use chatbot to learn more, right?
Yes, that's right.
I definitely found that true when I went back to school. I found I could keep up with conversations more and had a lot more to talk about within my marriage. It exploded the amount of conversations that I could have. So I definitely agree.
Whenever I learn something interesting, I'm excited to share it with my wife or my brother. When you don't have that, again, I think that's the indicator that you're starting to neglect that aspect.
Yeah, for sure. My husband and I, every time we leave a conversation with you and your wife, we always learn something new. It's always fun. What do you think it is for others when they're neglecting this area?
For others, it's likely to be somewhat different or maybe in a different context. But I think the clue is the feeling that you're being left out of a discussion, that there's something everybody else knows that you don't, or the feeling that others are doing interesting things and you recognize you don't have that in your life. I think that's the indication for others that they might be neglecting their intellectual health.
I think about this a lot when it feels like people, as they're aging, it just comes to a certain point where they just seem to have dementia or be diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I wanted to let you know that there are some amazing things happening behind the scenes here that I'm very excited about. The first one is I am opening my podcast up for sponsorships. So if you are an aligned brand with wellness, reach out to me. You can find me wellnessinEverySeason.com/podcast/sponsor. I also have something going on for you listeners. If you've been listening for a while, I interview people who are aligned with wellness, and they talk about the healing modalities and different modalities that they do, but it is in a very descriptive sense. I am making it so that you have the chance to experience it during a recorded episode, and other people get to experience it alongside you so that we can really see how it works. Instead of just this zoomed out experience, we get to really zoom in and experience it. So you can find out more about that at wellnessinEverySeason.com/listener wellness guest. It makes me wonder, especially in my degree, how this area can help prevent these things. It seems like a switch. One day they don't have it much anymore. This could be a really good way to capture that, to keep from going down that path of where your brain is atrophying. What I learned is it's never too late, which is amazing. I went back to school as a mom, and you're going back for your master's, younger, I'll call you younger. So it's just amazing. You have your PhD and you want to learn, and you're going back for a master's.
In a new area.
Yeah. And let's see, what is our next question? What have you done or routinely do to check up on your intellectual wellness?
I think this is tricky. For physical wellness, it's easy to know when I'm out of shape. My pants don't fit. I'm out of breath when I go up the stairs. For emotional wellness, again, I think that there's some good indicators. I can just feel when I'm falling short. Moreover, my family lets me know.
The joys of having kids.
They tell you when you're grumpy. Dad, stop being unhappy.
Yep.
For financial wellness, there are some other really well-defined metrics that let you know when you're falling short in those areas. But for intellectual wellness, it's harder to know when you need preventative measures. The National Wellness Institute uses a scale of 1 to 5, but rate myself on a scale of 1 to 3, good, bad, or neutral. Once I make an assessment, if I'm good, I keep doing what I'm doing. If I'm neutral, I try to add to things. And if I'm doing poorly, I know I need to make real changes. The strategy is goal setting. Goal setting is the most important method for preventing lapses in intellectual health. I make goals during the first week of January, and I'm really careful to write these out. I then keep track of my progress throughout the year. I have specific goals for songs to learn on the piano. I take piano lessons, and there's some songs that I want to learn this year. I also have a goal for the progress that I want to make on my master's degree this year that you mentioned. And then there are 4 books that I want to read. And so I have this very specific list. It's very specific. I know how many books I've read so far. I know how many of the songs that I've made so far. I know which courses I've finished in my master's. And so being able to measure that progress against specific goals is important. Besides setting goals, I also use semi-annual check-ins with myself to make sure that I'm making good progress and where I need to make adjustments. These are meetings with myself to take inventory. I use the beginning and end of daylight saving time as reminders. Those are nice because they're 6 months apart and fit in at the 3 and the 9 month period. They were good reminders for me to see where I am. And I would go back and review that handwritten list and see where I was making progress and we needed adjustments. It's okay to start ambitious and then scale down if necessary. Making some progress is better than none. I usually bite off more than I can chew in January, but I find in December I've accomplished more than if I hadn't set any goals. For me, the routine checkup is looking back at the end of the year, what did I get accomplished, and then setting new goals in January, and then having those daylight saving time check-ins to see where I am.
My husband and I are taking piano lessons. It's amazing how it uses your whole brain. I love it. Highly recommend piano for that reason.
I think my piano teacher, a third of her students are adults.
That's amazing. We have a mutual friend who's also an adult taking piano lessons. What can others do to strengthen this area if they are in a deficit?
No, that's a great question. I think the first part is being mindful that intellectual wellness is important. We mentioned that all the aspects of well-being are important and the interplay of one to another. Recognizing intellectual wellness is hard because the metrics for that are not always as obvious as they are for physical fitness or financial or emotional well-being. It's harder to track. I use specific goals and routine check-ins to gauge progress and make necessary adjustments. And I think that's a strategy that would work well for others, but you have to take it seriously. The goals that you set need to really be like contracts with yourself. And the check-ins need to be real serious meetings, like performance reviews that you'd have at your job, and where you sit down and have to be honest with yourself about how well you're doing in that particular area. But I think anyone who follows that template would be able to maintain good intellectual health. I think it needs to just be a strategy that you're willing to pursue for the whole year and be honest with yourself about the progress that you're making and then make adjustments as necessary.
Yeah, I think it's also important to realize where you're at in life and your capacity. If you are doing too much, maybe scale it down. Make sure that it's something that really feels good for you. One thing driven home during my career is SMART goals. And we will dive into that a little bit later. I will share that as a different episode. Basically, you are setting a measurement and a date you are visualizing it. I set them at the beginning of the year and I check in every week. We do that as a family meeting, checking in with kids, husband, family goals, couple goals. It's been really nice. So that's also when we do what meals are you craving, what's going on for the week. So it's like a whole thing that we do as our family. And I find that very helpful. Another thing I thought of is going back to videos I watched and content I read during my degree. It's never too late to learn something new. And they were showing people who were maybe in their 80s that were playing chess, that they were learning chess and playing it in the park. And the whole video was around this and how we can mentally stimulate ourselves. Okay, so we know how to strengthen it if we're in a deficit. What can we do to be preventative? I've seen several things you're doing to be preventative.
For me, goal setting is probably the biggest thing I do. It reminded me of my parents. I think that they have been great examples to me in intellectual wellness and that aspect of health. My mother is an example. She belongs to a literary club and she belongs to a quilt guild and she belongs to a drama club. And these are social events, but they're also very intellectual. They read these books together, they get together, they discuss them. The drama club, they get together and they pick plays and then they act them out for each other. And in the quilt guild, they're always learning new skills, how to bind different quilts together, how to do different kinds of stitches and new techniques for quilting. My mom was a great example to me. My dad was another great example. He mastered many things by the time I was an adult. He was an expert in scuba diving and even taught scuba diving for a while. His career was as an electronic engineer, but he really got into jewelry making and did lost wax casting. He was into remote control airplanes that built and flew all of his own airplanes. In his 80s, he got into 3D printing, and just one of these guys that was a lifelong learner and had all these different interests. And when he got to the point where he was really good at something or felt that he had mastered it, then he moved on to something else. And I just think that was one of the things, like you mentioned before, there's all this great research shows if you keep your mind engaged, you're more likely to be able to stave off Alzheimer's or dementia or all of these other neurological disorders to much later in life. My dad was sharp and quick-witted till the day he died into his 80s, was continuing to do new things all the time. And I attribute that thirst for learning as part of what kept him so vibrant in life.
I can see that both your parents had an influence on you with going to school, and especially knowing some of the stories of where you started out career. It's amazing to hear. Do you have any last thoughts?
No, just to say, I believe in this and I try to practice them to the best that I can in my own life, and really do believe that it's made a difference in my life and career. Thank you for having me. Enjoyed myself, and I hope my comments were helpful.
Thank you for your example and for sharing it with everybody on the podcast.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope that you found the answers that you needed and you had some amazing aha moments. Please share this episode with others because it helps us align ourselves and then better align the world so that we can seek the healing that we really are looking for. As part of the legal language, I am a certified life coach with a bachelor's in applied health. That is what I am leaning on for this. This is general advice. Take it as such. See you in the next episode.